Has anyone got that yet? I'm still waiting. Right? So episode. No, it's not. No one knows you're here yet. Just keep quiet. Episode 26. We've done it. So episode 26, Identity Human Podcast. If you've been along for the whole journey, you're absolutely incredible. But we've made it. And there's a couple of concepts from books that I just haven't got yet to discussing yet, because one, time in preparation, and two, it's like, oh, how do we fit this in? Anyway, there's something that I really like, and that's called a mastermind. And I've been working on something for maybe the last 4 years to really combine brains, because going to leadership development and teams and everything, it's about like, what are your strengths? And the better your team, the better you know your strengths, the better you can do. And I've almost officially made it come true, where I've convinced someone that wanted to do absolutely nothing with me for a good reason, to now then going, fine, let's join forces. So we've had her on the podcast before as a guest, but I would like to officially introduce to you our new co-host, Ray. Ray Armand, my beautiful wife, is now going to join forces. What do you have to say to the people?
I am truly honored. No, in all seriousness, this is Don's baby, and I am really honored that he has invited me to join him. We were considering starting a separate, we had begun starting a separate podcast on how to achieve high performance in everyday life from the perspective of a couple with kids, and all the different angles that we can bring on that. But just in terms of being a busy couple with businesses and kids, we didn't have the time to commit to 2 podcasts. So we really needed to kind of whittle it down. And Don's Identity Human
It's just cool, isn't it?
It just resonates with what we're trying to achieve and what Don's finally got me on board with. So we've decided just to put all our energy behind this podcast and everything to do with Identity Human. So there's the Identity Human website, where we're always putting content and latest courses and challenges. We've got the podcast, and then probably the Instagram page.
Yeah, and I think so. The 2 points. The first one is, Ray said we didn't have time. Not true. We didn't have the desire.
Yeah.
I would let's be open and honest about it. It's like there wasn't a desire to keep making sure that we're recording, and that's part of being truthful and authentic. Is at the end of the day, if we wanted to, we would have done it, but there was something missing, right? And that's okay.
Time, but it's energy or purpose. We would split too thin, and I wouldn't say stress or time. I was using time as a word, but it's our energy needed to be focused in one place.
Yeah, and that's fine. And then the second bit is this actually just adds such a cool element, because Identity Human, when I first thought of it, it's all about what's at source of your mind, right? But one thing that would have always been missing if I didn't have a co-host like Ray is we're quite opposite in the way we think, and she's a woman and I'm a man. And that it does bring in a different perspective, which is really good. So there will be times when we disagree, and we might, communicate in a way that you guys think, oh, they're clashing. It's no, we've just built up a level of trust, and sometimes, that comes across differently to other people. But we're a strong, solid force, and I really enjoy the fact that she is now part of the podcast and part of the Identity Human thing, because it does mean that it's more, when I talk about I did personality traits in a couple of episodes ago, it's now bringing a completely different strength into the voice and the narrative. And that's quite exciting, because if you're listening to this and you don't like what I say, but Ray gives a different perspective, or vice versa, you're essentially going to get how would you describe it? I'll probably give you the fluffy, more emotional, bigger picture type thing, whereas Ray will be very realistic, very black and white, very much linear thinking. But it's merged, so where she's allowed me to see things clearer from that point of view, and realistically not react in more of a defensive, reactive type of reaction. She will also have now understood how the black and white will actually not land well with everyone. And so it's really been able to mold that the mind of both of us. And so we hope we can pass it on to you guys. So as it builds, some episodes we'll talk about parenting, children, jobs, owning businesses, all the kind of stuff that we were doing with Eat, Sleep, Level Up, Repeat. But we're going to bring into Identity Human, because at the core of it, you will be able to identify in our lives, something that's happening in yours, even if you don't have kids or partners. Because I promise you, what I've picked up is nothing changes in the mindset. It's just the situation. It's just all the external things. Nothing changes when
I'm looking at Don.
Ray's giving me a look.
What do you mean nothing changes?
Here we go.
In the
First
mindset?
instance. So, because someone is a parent, that doesn't mean at the core they feel different feelings. You feel the same feelings. It's just different external factors that poke at it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we are able to bring and talk about those things. Just because you don't have children, it doesn't mean you won't be able to relate.
But there is a lot of relevancy in the fact that if I know when I listen to podcasts, if someone takes a principle, like an underlying, maybe it's a structure to help with your mindset, and they apply it to a situation of parenting versus business, you can just in our busy lives often resonate with the one that is talking about a scenario that's most relevant to your
Easy
life.
to understand.
So I get what you say, that we're going to cover topics, a broad spectrum of topics, and it may not always be relevant to all our listeners. But that's also useful to a degree, because if Don has a set structure and he's only described it in one way, if we've covered it in a topic a couple of weeks later, we might lean into that same structure to talk about a completely different area of life or different type of life, or yeah. So
we'll see as we go on. Like, let us warm up to you guys, or you guys warm up to us. So I'm going to bring it back to Ray, and like, if you could tell everyone maybe how you've seen Identity Human from your point of view, so I can also reflect here, just how the journey's gone so far from, like being a fly on the wall, because you've been sat around the corner doing your own thing while I record you every Tuesday, and I've given you like the fluffy stuff around Identity Human. So what's your opinion on it?
I have to be honest.
Oh, please do.
That I haven't followed it terribly closely.
Okay, that's it. Podcast ending. Sorry, guys, we're done.
So I haven't sat down and listened to episodes. I've overheard a few, but usually when Don's been recording, I've been working on my computer a room over. I used to follow his stream very closely because he does the stream and the podcast for a good couple of years, but I just have had to focus on other areas. But what I do know about Identity Human is, well, put it this way, I believe I've been a source of inspiration, because Don and I are always exploring, Don and I are always exploring ideas. And everything Don has been speaking about to you guys over the past few months, trust me, Don and I have been speaking about too in our personal lives, and we've worked through different challenges together using a lot of the techniques, tricks,
empowering
principles that he's taught you. But the reason why I say I've been a source of inspiration is because quite often when it comes to recording this podcast, he'll be like, I really don't know what to talk about this week. And at least 50% of his podcasts, I've been like, well, why don't you talk about this? And he'd be like, oh yeah, I'll do that. So I know a lot of his topics.
I'll give you 3 of the 25.
A lot of his topics have flown from me. Grown from me. But, so just going back to your question on my point of view on Identity Human, what I do know from what I've heard you talk about and the way you described it to me is that it's going quite deep into topics, so really playing around, exploring, like pushing the edges on specific deep topics, whereas podcasts Don and I have done together previously have been broader and kind of focus more on just on everyday life and just general stuff that we're up to. So I'm intrigued to know, now that Don's brought me on as a co-host, what is his plan for the general theme of the episodes going forward?
Well, first of all, we've got to look at the in-depth structures here. It's like we've reached episode 26. So this was always the goal. Like, if you listen to every episode, like, oh, we're going to get episode 26, but it puts us in the top 1%.
I feel like we should be doing a bigger celebration.
So celebrate the small wins. We've got some non-alcoholic beer. But there's no bigger plan, because actually what I want us to talk about is always going to be empowering principles. And actually now I get to ask, like, if we get a guest on, how cool. We have 3 people on the podcast. If we don't get a guest on, like, sometimes you can interview me, sometimes, and we can just talk through different case studies, different examples, and keep referring back to, like, these first 25 episodes are probably going to be like the massive foundational elements that we can revisit some of the episodes and just talk about them, so that people, now we start to get to that like circular thinking type of empowering principle. Is like, let's just go over this. How are you feeling? Like, let's talk about ego. Like, a lot of the stuff that you and I talk about in the background is some very, very interesting things. Like, we went on a hike yesterday and we talked about ego in depth, because what does that mean? And, you know, one of the things that we came out of that was like, everyone talks about fear of failure. And we're like, well, fear of failure is literally down to ego, isn't it? Because, you know, once you've succeeded a couple of times, then you're worried about what other people think about you, which is ego. And you don't want to fail, because failure means that you're going to look like a failure, which is ego. But we had to get to that point through discussions and, you know, I'd say massive self-reflection, because ego is something that you don't see. And that's the kind of thing that I want to bring to this podcast, which is originally what I want to do with guests. But it's harder to get guests to log on a Tuesday night at 9 o'clock to record live, so that eventually we do get more people. But, you know, my plan for now is just going like, what's hit you this week? What book have you read? What podcast have you heard that's inspired you, so that you can pass on, but we can then flesh it out. Because I would say I'm like, in terms of communication, I'm an interpretive, in-depth communicator, whereas you're probably, how would you say? You can go in depth, but you're more of a descriptive, breadth communicator.
I don't know if this is describe it well, but I'm more like, I want to understand why. I'm not really interested in the detail of like all the little specifics, but I need to know the general picture of why I need to do something. And that helps me. Like, if someone, let's take one of your models or frameworks, I almost don't need to know too much of the granular detail. If you can just explain to me why, you know, your structure, mindset, skill set. If I just understand why structure is going to empower me, then I'm so much more motivated to do it. So like, it's like a subtle difference.
So I'm interested here, because when you say I'm interested in the why, where I interpret why is like, it's like that really deep bit. But actually what I'm getting there is, you're not interested in the deep, you're just interested in the will this work, will this not? Which is actually, it's not deep, because then you don't need the understanding. You just need to know, does this work? Yes, it does. And give me one or two reasons why, and I'm done.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's something that I maybe need to explore for myself, because I know that it's like this subtle difference, and I maybe need to define it more, where I need to know why I need to do something to actually have any desire to do it.
Yeah.
Okay? But I don't need to know the detail. So I'm somewhere in between there. So I can give you, like, I can think of up some examples, and yeah, it's an interesting one to explore, because like our brains work totally differently in that sense. Don and I are learning more and more when we have discussions around any of these topics, ego, anything, we find that we just want to explore topics at a completely different level. And then I tend to get bored before Don.
And I get frustrated, because like, no, there's so much more to explore here, and you're like, no, we're done. So like, a good way of describing it is like, my shallow is raised deep.
Yeah.
And that's really helped me like understand that, like, when she says, no, I'm done talking, it's like, I haven't managed to drag her down quick enough into the depths of like how I want to see understanding done.
But I also think that's partly why I'm a, inverted commas, good accountant, and why my clients like I often get comments about like how passionate I am about talking about accounting, and how like I'm good at just like giving the high levels, because I can go into the detail of accounting, but that's just never the reason how I talk about a topic. So I'm quite good at like doing the high level picture to clients on like complex accounting issues or anything. So the I recognize for myself that the granular detail is not something that interests me. So,
but the granular detail doesn't interest me. So I think this is where it's interesting, like how you perceive granular detail.
I know.
Because I think granular detail is like, here's the high performance triangle. Here are the 15 steps that you've got to follow, and within those 15 steps, there's a 3-part bulletproof points and here's all of them. Like for me, that's granular detail. Whereas I don't have that. I'm just like, it's very similar to what you're saying, but yours at a shallow level, mine's at a deep level.
Here's an example, and when I get this example going, it might get your juices flowing on other examples. And anyway, the reason why I think Don and I are sticking on this topic, because I think it'll be interesting for any listeners to see which camp you fall into, and then you'll resonate with Don and I when we talk at different points. But if I use the idea of fasting, and whether your purpose of let's say you want to lose weight, or you just want to have a healthier gut or a healthier system, and what I really needed, if someone just said to me, you need to fast to make yourself healthier, have a healthier gut, that's not enough for me.
Yeah.
I want to understand like that fasting does X, Y, or Z, and when you fast for this long, you achieve that. When you fast for that long, like a bit longer, you achieve that, etc. Like a bit more detail, but do not that level of detail completely transforms my desire to fast. Like actually understanding the reasons why going to certain hours on fasting, like what my body does and what like understand a bit more detail, but do not get scientific on me and like go down to like exactly the mitochondria and what those cells are doing and all that detail, because I lose interest. So I need the why, but not the detail.
As long as it solves a pain point, you're happy that someone said it solves this pain point. You go, yes, how or why? Because this, yeah, okay, fine.
Or like another example, it happens to be health related, is I'm doing the Superhuman Health Protocol with AJ, is it Brooks, at the moment.
That's a free plug, AJ.
His program's absolutely amazing. Highly recommend it. It's just if you have like, you just feel like your body is suboptimal and you've been to the doctor and you've tried nutrients and you just like, he basically does blood works.
Wait, he's going to have to pay for
I
this.
know,
Move on. They don't want to know about it.
I'm just giving you context, and he has a whole supplement program, exercise, diet, like a whole lot of stuff.
How much discount is he giving you?
Let me just explain. Now, the supplements program kind of really blew my mind because it wasn't like vitamin D, like all these different vitamins. It's actually stuff that like works on your body at a completely different level. It's not just the vitamins. It's like, I don't know. You see, this is where I don't know the detail. This is what's hilarious. I don't even really know what I'm taking, but there's about 12 different things I take each day. Okay. So what is hilarious? So let me explain.
We trust in AJ.
Is the protocol provides very detailed information on what each of these supplements do. I don't think I've read that once. And on the calls, people will zone in on a particular supplement that they're taking of their 12 in any period and like talk about the details and how it impacts their body, and I'm just like, yawn, don't, like, that's so boring. What I want to know is like, AJ, what are you trying to achieve? Tell me, you got my body's at point A, you take me to point B, what's the overall picture of how you're doing that? That interests me. If you tell me the overall picture, I'm in. I don't need to know the granular detail. Can you think of another example where you might...
I'm trying to think. It's like...
In the AJ Superhuman Health example, what would you delve into? How deep would you want to go in a particular area?
I don't know. I think in that case, I might be quite similar. But I do think that like the more little things you know, the more it empowers you to keep going. So like there are like elements of like when I talk about testosterone or like, you know, after 24 hours of fasting, your stem cells increase. And it's like, oh, maybe I want to do a 24-hour fast.
Yeah,
so
but
like,
see, that interests me from a high level point of view.
But that's not high level.
It's
so interesting, isn't it? But like, I suppose this is just a thing, like how we have different interpretations of things in the way we communicate. And it's so hard when someone says, do you know yourself? It's like, yes, I do. And then you try and explain it. You're like, well, and I think it might come down to like context. Like, I know your personality profile even, and even it just might be as simple as like the things you value, you will look into. The things you don't, you wouldn't be bothered with. And it could be like contextual type of depth that you're about. But anyway, I think we're getting sidetracked.
Yeah, we are getting sidetracked. On the note of topics that we'll cover, Don and I do have a number of topics that I think are super interesting that we have covered before on the other podcasts that we'll be phasing out. So I think we can maybe bring across some of our favorite topics from there.
Yeah, we will bring. So if you want to go and listen to them in ahead, it's the podcast called Eat, Sleep, Level Up, Repeat. It was quite cool. Like when you said you want to come over and you wanted to consolidate, I was a bit sad because it was something that was really cool around, like, it was very specific niche on like a couple with 4 kids with intergenerational living, starting up businesses, like trying to run businesses, trying to like grow to the next level, all the while.
Isn't that the angle that Identity Human will then take?
Well, it's going to have to now. No, it's like that's what that was all about. So Identity Human will be very similar.
But
And we
I
will
suppose
define it as we go. It's just
you
one
can
of those.
almost like merge, because if you look at your description of identity human versus eat, sleep, level up, repeat, it is really.
It's really similar.
I'm intrigued to hear if you think it's similar, because for me, what we're achieving with the eat, sleep, level up, repeat is, like I said at the beginning, it's about living a high performance life from the perspective of a couple. So if I'm co-host, you can obviously kick me off at any point, but this is Don's podcast and I'm very much co-host. But it is going to be from the perspective of a couple in terms of how we achieve high performance in various areas
and
of
then,
our life.
again, remember with Identity Human, we're trying to simplify things. So yes, the cover page is couple, all the stories and everything, but actually what I'm really fascinated with is put your identity as a mom and all that kind of stuff aside, my identity as whatever I am aside, and it's like my brain and your brain. What are we talking about, and how does it help you get through things, and how do I help myself get through things, and then how do we combine that together? Because that at the core of Identity Human, literally, if you saw the model, if I drew it for you, it would be like, it doesn't matter anything else around you. It's who are you, and what are you, and how are you applying what principles to yourself to get you through things, and then how are we doing that together? And I think that's why I really like this.
Yeah. And we'll be able to, like, at the moment, Don and I are training for 3 Peaks, which we're doing end of July. We both have a couple of, like I say, 2 or 3 businesses that we run. We've got 4 kids, as Don mentioned, multi-generational living. We
broken down appliances, falling over walls, properties.
You've distracted me now.
Sorry.
And there was something else I was gonna say.
Well,
we've also, like, I don't know if we've said so far, but I'm a chartered accountant, so I work with my clients to help them achieve literally like optimal position in their finances of their business, and very much help them on the strategy side of things. So I'm also got a lot of experience working with business owners. So if you're in like a business context, whether you're a business owner or someone helping a business grow, we've also, those topics will naturally fall into some of the conversations we have on this podcast. And also we've taken a lot of those principles and even put it into our goal setting and finances as a couple. And I don't know if Don's ever mentioned on this podcast, but we have a monthly, what we call life dinner, where once a month we have a strategy session just focusing on how do we optimize our life further, and what are our goals, and are we moving towards our goals. So there's loads that we could talk about and delve into in more detail.
Yeah, and I suppose what is important there is like hearing it from Ray and the things that she brings. She's not just someone else that's like fancies during the podcast. Like when she gives an opinion, like I would be able to sell her into anyone, because I believe as in like chartered accountancy. Let's just make sure we're very clear on what I'm selling you into. Because I've literally spent the last 10 years, 9, 8, 7 years since you've been running your own business, listening, because I always work in an adjacent room, listening to how Ray interacts with the clients, and then some of the client feedback, and how easy I can sell people into her because of what she brings and how she transforms businesses, but working within them. So when she gives an opinion, it's like, it's not just something that like sounds good. She does like combine that Dewey's principle I think I spoke about last week, where it's like experience and knowledge. She doesn't just talk from a knowledge point of view, because that is something that we've really honed in on lately, is like you have to combine your knowledge with experience to make sure that what you're saying, you understand the pros and the cons of.
And what is so fascinating, I will end off by saying on this topic, is that as much as I've said finance and business, and now you're like, whoa, this podcast has nothing to do with finance and business. When I truly have helped my clients over the past few years, it's actually to delve deeper into their personal goals. What are they trying to achieve at a personal level? And that then feeds into everything else in terms of what they're trying to achieve in their business. So it always comes back to them as individuals, or you, if you are listening to this podcast, as the individual. What are you trying to achieve? And that's actually where your strategy and finance and all of that feeds off of. Yeah. So you have to get really clear on your personal goals to make sure that your business or your career, if you're not a business owner, but your business or your career needs to serve your personal goals, your personal life, not the other way around. And if you're in a position that where you feel like your personal life is a slave to your business or your career, then hopefully part of the structure that Don and I will be talking around will be able to help you, which is a big part of the sort of challenges and courses that we're looking to go into going forward.
Yeah. So I'll look after me for you, you look after you for me is exactly essentially what Ray's trying to say there. Is like, look after your personal life, then you can have a bigger effect with your business. And if you have a good effect in your business, you can look after other people. So that's how I interpret that.
Yeah.
Right. So that brings us to 26 minutes of an introduction of Ray and chatting. And I think that's been well served. So if you've listened to all this all the way here, thank you very much. Whoop, whoop. You've been amazing. Yeah, congratulations. Now we'll diversify a little bit going forward in terms of the episodes, the voices you'll hear, and it gets a bit exciting because once Ray gets her mind into it, she'll start to bring her own spin on things, and perhaps some quirky intros will be introduced. But I'm trying to hold on. I'm trying to hold out on that for now. But yeah, thank you very much for listening, and Ray, I'm grateful to have you on board.
Thank you for the invitation.
Right. Have a great week, everyone. Remember, I'll look after me for you, and you look after you for me. Ubuntu, we are who we are to others. Right. Bye-bye.